and save us, Lord our God. Let your face shine upon us, that we may be saved. Alleluia.
Alleluia.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord.
When Jesus entered Capernaum, a centurion approached him and appealed to him, saying, Lord, my servant is lying at home paralyzed, suffering dreadfully. He said to him, I will come and cure him. The centurion said in reply, Lord, I am not worthy to have you enter under my roof. Only say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I too am a man subject to authority, with soldiers subject to me. And I say to one, go, and he goes, and to another, come here, and he comes. To my slave, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed and said to those following him, Amen, I say to you, in no one in Israel have I found such faith. Amen, I say to you, many will come from the east and from the west, and will recline with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob at the banquet of the King in the kingdom of heaven. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Lord, to the Holy Gospel, wipe away our sin. Well, we have reached the pinnacle of our pilgrimage journey. I want to begin with a Jeopardy moment. I like to do this with my people in my parish. Isaiah the prophet is often known to us as the... Now, he had a title. He is known as the prophet of... Go on, Ellen, tell them. Consolation. See, if you hear these things over and over again, you'll begin to actually absorb them and you'll start to know the truth. So he's known as the prophet. Like all the prophets, he was sent with a message of consolation at a time of great trial and difficulty, challenge for the people of Israel. But in that short extract, that short passage that we heard, remember that the Israelites, the Jewish people, felt that salvation was their gift from God. It was from them alone, for them alone. The other nations, well, they were out on their own. But here, in that beautiful text, Isaiah starts to break open that way of thinking, and instead says, all the nations of the world will come to be instructed. All the nations will come to walk in the pathways of the Lord. And it's one of the first times in the Old Testament where all the promises that were once made and that were the prerogative of Israel are now being offered to all generations and to all nationalities and cultures. The word consolation is very, very important here, because it's one of the great gifts that God gives to us in this broken world. His presence, His consolation. You gotta love it. Because I think that was the same way when Our Lady appeared here in Guadalupe, was with a message of consolation to the native people at a time equally of great trial and tribulation. She came as a prophetess in many ways with that word of consolation to remind them, to reveal to them the enormity, the abundance of God's love for them, and God's desire that they come to know Him and be instructed in His ways, to climb the mountain of the Lord. Now, Tepeyac Hill is not that big so it isn't, but still, it is a great metaphor for the image that Isaiah is using in the first reading, to climb the mountain of the Lord, to encounter God. Mountains in the Old Testament, mountains in the ancient world, were places where you and I, the ordinary folks, encountered the divine, where we were instructed in their ways, where we felt their presence, where we offered worship, yes. And so in a way, that's why the mountain is so important for us today. And for us as well, as we continue our pilgrimage journey, we too need that word of consolation. Wherever Mary appears, I was saying to Ellen earlier on today, as I was walking around this basilica, it reminded me in so many ways of the Basilica of Our Lady of Knock in my own home country of Ireland. And again, wherever Mary appears, whether it be in Knock, in Fatima, in Lourdes, in Medjugorje, there's always that message of consolation. There's always that message of encouragement, God's loving presence is sort of fills our hearts and those who encounter that and come to that place. And I think that's the great word for us. And when you think about our world, where we are at this moment in our world, we too need to hear that message of consolation. There's a lot of spirits out there, spirits of dissent and division and disunity. There's a lot of talk and agendas and manifestos that pitch one people against another, that talk about building walls rather than building bridges. And the Lord is saying to us, you and I, we're called, once we have experienced His love and His presence, been instructed in His ways. Once He has, to use the image in the gospel, once He has entered into under our roofs, the very roofs of our hearts, we're called then to share that message and that joy and that consolation with others. So there's a lot of imagery today in the readings, which are actually the readings for the feast day of St. Francis Xavier, another great Jesuit priest and saint, who encountered the Lord, then spent his life sharing that message with far-off nations, because he too wanted all to hear that message. And you and I, when we go back to our different places in our homes, our countries, in our states, wherever we find ourselves, we're asked then to bring that message of consolation. That God is on our side, and that whenever God's presence is felt, whether it's through the words of the prophets in the Old Testament, whether it's through the saints, and particularly through His Blessed Mother as she has appeared so many times through the generations, and it always has that message of consolation. And yes, we want to fall on our knees this day and say, Lord, I'm not worthy. The Lord lifts us up and He says, I want you to have this gift. I want you to encounter me in a rich and deeper way. And Mary always points to Christ. Mary, the story never ends with Mary, whether it's Our Lady of Guadalupe, Our Lady of Knock, Our Lady of Fatima. The story is always, she's always pointing to Christ, in the same way John Paul in the great statue out there, pointing to Christ and saying, here is the Lamb of God. Here is the one who fulfills the heart's deepest needs. You and I have come on this pilgrimage not as tourists, but as pilgrims. We've come because there's something deep within us that needs to be fed and nourished. We've encountered Christ in many ways along the pathway of our journeys, particularly to the sacramental life of the Church. We've encountered Him, the sacrament of reconciliation. We have felt His healing. We've encountered Him in the word proclaimed, in the sacrament of holy orders, in the sacrament of marriage. We've encountered Him. But that self-giving that is so much part of the very heart of God continues. And in this holy place, I hope and pray that the rest of this day and our pilgrimage journey will be a time of great fulfillment and strengthening for us, so that we will be consoled. I'm talking to all of you as I go along, spending time with you. You know, we all have our little struggles and our challenges, our wounds, our moments of joy, our celebrations. We carry those with us. They're part of who we are. The Lord wants to balm them all. The Lord wants to strengthen us to live the life faithfully. So our prayer this day is that through the intercession of Our Lady of Guadalupe, each one of us will come to know the Lord in a much deeper way. We will too know that consolation. Juan Diego is a great example for us because in many ways his humanity shines forth. As we watched the video, we saw how he sort of went around the long way to try and avoid. Well, there's a little bit of that in us as well. But Mary met him coming back. Because she had a message. She knew the greater joy that would be found when he fully understood the task, the mission that was entrusted to him. I've learned so much along the way. I didn't realize that the back of the tilma is identical to the front. I didn't realize that his uncle too had an apparition of the Blessed Mother, and she had revealed her name to him as the Virgin of Guadalupe. These are all these beautiful things, the great mystery of Mary's presence in the heart of the Church. Sometimes as Roman Catholics, we like to define everything. We like dogma and doctrines. Our Eastern brothers and sisters just gently guide us into and say, Mary exists in the mystery at the heart of the church. Take the story of Pentecost. She's just mentioned once. She's there in prayer. And so her presence in the heart of the church continues in that beautiful way. A presence of consolation, a presence of prayer, a presence of strength, a presence of example for us, deepening for us to deepen our relationship with Christ Jesus. So we go, when we leave this holy place, we will be strengthened. We will be changed. Our relationship with Christ will be deepened. I hope and pray that when we go home, that our devotion to Mary will allow others to see the eternal presence of Christ. And together our world can climb the mountain of the Lord, and finally be instructed in His holy ways. Amen. So let us stand and bring our prayers before the Lord this day. Continue to pray for the church. This time of great difficulty. We pray for our Holy